Okay, this is how to do homework 1.2, number 14. It's a question involving Kevin walking somewhere and then coming back home. The graph looks like this, which is pretty funky, but we're going to take a look at all the questions. It's got a lot of parts, except the parts are all pretty repetitive, so I'm not going to go through every single part, just a couple. So for a lot of them, the first part is from time equals blank to time equals blank, how many hours elapsed? Well, t is measured in hours, that says this. So if I start my clock at 0 hours and I look at my clock and it's now like 3 p.m., right? Or 3 a.m., I guess, doesn't matter how many hours passed. It's just 3 minus 0. That would give me 3. So I would say 3 minus 0 is equal to 3 hours passed. Now, the next part, it says, how far was Kevin from home during this time? This is multiple choice. This is almost sort of a trick question because if I look at my graph over here, this dt over here, this means how far he was away from home during the time. So if I look at point 0, so here's the x or the t value 0, and here's the t value 3. So I'm going to go ahead and draw like a vertical line down here because, well, it's not a very vertical line. Okay, so basically I'm talking about this little chunk of time right here. So how far he is away from home sort of depends on what time specifically, right? If I click on, or if I look at this time, he's barely away from home. If I check this time, he's way further away from home. So the answer is, it sort of depends. But if I'm looking at this specific chunk of time, he could be anywhere from at home to 10 miles away from home. That's what this 10 stands for. So how far away was Kevin from home? Anywhere from at home, b equals 0, to 10 miles away from home, d equals 10. So it depends on where you check in between 0 and 3, but he's going to be somewhere between 0 and 10 miles from home. Let's do one more example. From t equals 3 to t equals 3.4, how much time elapsed? It's a little weird to measure hours in decimals, right? Because like how much is 0.4 of an hour? That's a little awkward, right? But it's going to be the same deal. From 3.4, if I get rid of 3, that would mean 0.4 hours passed. I'm not going to bother translating that to minutes, but less than an hour passed, right? Okay, so looking at the graph, the next question is, how far away from home is he right now? So from 3 to 3.4, that's talking about this little chunk of time right here. And you can see wherever he is, he stayed there. He's 10 miles away from home, and he stayed 10 miles away from home during this little chunk of time. That's what it means for that line to be flat. So he is exactly 10 miles away from home. Miles away from home. Okay, and the rest of these questions follow the same pattern. How much time passed and how far away from home is he? When you're looking at these areas where you see this curve or a slope here, it could be anywhere along this line, right? So for example, if I'm looking at this chunk of time from 3.4 to 4 over here, well, he could be 10 miles away from home, or he could be at home. Depends on where you're looking in this chunk of time. Okay, but the last questions are a little bit different. So H and I, part H and I, says what is the farthest distance that he was from home? In other words, how far did he go? If I look back at my question over here, in other words, this is asking me what is the tallest part of the blue line? Or what is the biggest Y value here? And my biggest Y value is going to be 10. He made it 10 miles away from home. Over here, he only made it 9.4 miles away from home. So at most, he made it 10 miles. So what is the farthest distance Kevin was from home? 10 miles. That's as far as he made it. How many times did Kevin return home? So remember, Kevin returning home means that his distance from home is 0, right? You're in your house if you are 0 miles away from it, or sorry, if you're 0 distance away from it. So over here, I'm gonna highlight it a different color this time. Over here, he's home. Over here, he's home. And over here, he's home. But it said, how many times did he return home? So we're not actually going to count this guy because he's starting at home. So return means kind of go back to. So we're not going to count this because he started there. So from wherever he was 10 miles away from home, this is him going back to home once. Then he leaves home and he comes back to home again. So Kevin goes back home 2 times. And there you have it. This is how you would interpret a graph like this in context.